Hi everyone, welcome back to the Guy Midkiff Show. My name is Guy Midkiff, and today's show is going to be called the Roth Goldilocks Zone. So if you want to learn more about potentially converting money into a Roth IRA, stick around. We'll be right back. Well guys, you know my show. If you've been listening to other episodes, the things that I like to talk about are issues that matter to we baby boomers. And there's a bunch of us that's retiring each and every day. I like to focus on items such as health and wealth and travel, quality of life strategies, things that make the best out of your golden years. So thanks for sticking around. Let's take a look at today's show in more detail. Look, before I jump into financial matters, I always do like to give this disclaimer. And what I like to be very clear about is the fact that I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a CFP, certified financial planner. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an investment professional. Well, in some ways I kind of am, because I've been investing in myself since I was a first lieutenant, second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, so decades. And that is what I'm leaning on. So please keep that in mind, that nothing I share here is personalized financial or tax or investment advice, but what you're about to hear comes straight from my own lived experience, like the youngins like to say. And as a retired airline pilot with over 35 years in the cockpit, I've navigated retirement. I've been through, lucky me, 3 airline bankruptcies, 2 at TWA and 1 at American, and actually gone through this decision process myself. So to me, this works, and it has worked for decades. But what I want to lean on is the concept that this isn't theory from a 30-year-old, someone that's looking to make a name for themselves on social media. That's not me. I'm here to help you guys. I don't sponsor anybody. I don't take money from anybody. And if you like what I'm saying and what I'm talking about, you click on it, you follow me. And if you don't, you won't. And well, I end up going away, which is a natural course of things, I guess. But what I do talk about is real world stuff that's worked all throughout my life after decades of hard-earned lessons, the school of hard knocks, I guess. But remember, everyone's situation is different. Your numbers, your family, your goals, your risks are unique to you. So please don't take any of this as a sure recommendation for how you should handle your own money. And as always, I would always suggest running these ideas by your qualified tax professionals or CPA before making any moves with your money. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of this week, I'm in the last month of January. I'm in the last month of 2025, I should say. I just had a meeting with my CPA to figure out how much money I can convert and stay within certain tax brackets. I will say that I am just sharing my journey to hopefully spark some good conversations for you to ask your team and the people you trust and rely on. And you'll probably notice, I didn't mention or recommend financial advisors or CFPs. And well, frankly, there's a good reason for that. Matter of fact, I'm thinking about writing an entire show script on the idea and the utility of financial advisors. And don't worry, I'm going to use the words of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger when I talk about it. Now, as many of you know, I'm a retired captain. I spent 35 years, just retired last year, in the cockpit. Another 12 years as a Marine transport pilot flying C-130s, and then a little stint as a Navy flight instructor down in Corpus. Today, I want to speak directly to my fellow pilots that are hopefully high net worth individuals approaching retirement or already enjoying their well-earned freedom. I think it's interesting how I came by today's topic. And I still schedule for a lot of pilots. I do scheduling for about 50 pilots. It's a little way to make a little bit of income. The money that I make from that scheduling, by the way, I do use for Roth conversions, which is kind of interesting. But how did the subject come about? I've got a couple of guys every month, and they're 3 to 4 years away from retirement. And they insist on me blocking at least 7 days of their month so they can go play pickleball, go play tennis, go do this, do that, take a cruise, play golf in particular. And what I always try to tell them, say, look, guys, My plan for Roth conversions require cash. And if you're not productively putting cash in the bank, you're impacting your ability to do what we're going to talk about in this episode. So do me a favor, all right? I know you have to enjoy life, I got that. Put that off for just a couple more years. When you turn 65, keep yourself healthy. You can play all the golf you want, all the pickleball you want, all the tennis you want, travel around the world. That's what I'm doing. And just delay that gratification. And trust me when I tell you, by the end of this show, hopefully you're going to get it. So what we're talking about is what I call the Roth Goldilocks Zone, that sweet spot after retirement. But before you begin paying back Uncle Sam for years of 401 and your IRA partnership, and that's when you get hit with RMDs. And right there, that's the chart that I made, a very high-tech chart. And these required minimum distributions, if you haven't heard the word RMD, trust me, it's coming at you like a freight train. And once it hits you, you're going to get it, along with IRMA, IRMAA. Whole different subject I've actually talked about in previous podcasts. The idea of the Goldilocks zone is you're in a brief period where it's not too hot and it's not too cold. It's just right for you to supercharge your retirement with Roth conversions. Many of you, like myself, have spent decades in the cockpit. I too put up with decades of mergers and zero dark 30 calls from crew scheduling, having requiring for you to be at the airport in 2 hours, messing with broken jets, bad weather, pissed off passengers, career jeopardizing events, like every time we take a check ride every 9 months, or we get a flight physical a couple times a year. If we get a heart condition or we blow a check ride, that could be a career ending for us. By the way, did I mention the family separation, the hours and the days and the months that's taken me away from my family, which I will tell you does impact your family relationship. Those are times that will never be recovered, unfortunately, and that's the price that we've had to pay. So it's time for we retired guys to do this right. And if that's you, or if you're anyone else building a solid nest egg, not necessarily a pilot, this show's for you. All right, gang, let's saddle up. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to walk over to the whiteboard and I'm going to give you a brief discussion about what you see right there. Hey everybody, let's spend a little time on this very high-tech graph that I spent hours in the production room taking care of. It's called the Roth Goldilocks Zone chart, and this kind of demonstrates what I'm talking about. So what I did was I set up a Y and an X axis. The Y is going to be your tax bracket. The X will be your age, starting at approximately 65 and going to 73 or 75, depending on the year in which you were born. Max tax bracket up here is theoretical. It's around 35% down to the lower range. But the whole idea of what I'm trying to show you here is that this right here is what I'm going to affectionately call the Roth Goldilocks zone. And you're trucking along here, it's your high tax rate. And then if you're like a pilot, you have mandatory retirement at age 65 and your tax bracket drops off. But it does not drop off instantly. It drops off, like for me, I was born in October of my retirement year, which meant I had a pretty full tax year, which meant that I really couldn't do this. And I had to wait till the next year, which was this year, to do my Roth conversion. So if we have this fairly clear in the mind, I'll jump back to my presentation. And for a million of we baby boomers, tax rates plummet precipitously once you retire. I pointed that out in the graph. We're talking dropping from as high as 37% to 32% once you retire, down to 10 or 12%. I mean, it's a huge drop, and why not take advantage of that? And why do we have that big drop? It's obvious. I mean, we've lost our income source because we were forced to retire at age 65. Now, there are a couple things that can jump in there and help your adjusted gross income, like investment properties, things of that nature. But once again, we'll discuss that as we get down a little deeper into the conversation. So you pay taxes on the conversion now at these rock bottom rates, and then And then boom, tax-free growth and withdrawals forever. And that's the beauty of Roth IRAs. No RMDs on Roth either. So your money compounds undisturbed. So now let's talk motivations, especially with the new tax landscape in 2025. Enter the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Yep, that massive tax overhaul signed into law on July 4th, 2025, which permanently extended those favorable TCJA brackets, which stands for Tax Cut and Jobs Act, enacted in 2017. Great for us. And from 10 to 37% on top of that, all inflation adjusted. And it bumped up SALT deductions up to $40,000 through 2029, which is huge for high net worth folks living in high tax states. So let's talk about the new senior bonus deduction. This is the new additional deduction for taxpayers age 65 and older, often called the senior bonus deduction or enhanced deduction for seniors. What does it do? Well, it provides an extra $6,000 deduction per qualified individual, up to $12,000 for a married couple where both spouses are 65 and above. This is on top of the existing extra standard deduction for seniors, about $2,000 for seniors, $1,600 for joint filers times 2, and applies whether you take the standard deduction or you itemize. It's temporary, available only for tax years 2025 through 2028. Another great reason to hop on this while you can. Phase out. Well, the phase out begins to reduce your modified adjusted gross income if it exceeds $75,000 single, $150 joint, and fully phases out at higher levels around $175,000 single, $250 joint, depending on the exact tax calculations. And for those over 65, an extra $6,000 deduction per person through 2028, though it does phase out at higher MAGI levels, modified adjusted gross income. So what's the reality? Well, these changes create even more room in lower brackets for Roth conversions. The permanent lower rates mean you can pay taxes on conversions now without worrying about a big hike later on, locking in savings. That said, watch out for the tax torpedo. Conversions could bump you into higher brackets, phase out deductions like the new senior one, the one that I'm talking about here, or the expanded SALT, or even trigger higher tiers with Medicare surcharges. So plan carefully with the pro, your CPA, tax advisor, who I'd recommend. It's like plotting a flight plan. Avoid turbulence by converting in chunks over multiple years. Just did my first conversion and I did $150,000, and I think it's going to cost me around $25,000 to $28,000 for that conversion. Another reason why cash is very important here. Look, I'm a big fan of debate. I think you should be challenged with your ideas, and that's fine. I'm sure people are going to challenge this. It's okay. A Roth conversion is an insurance policy against those stacked future taxes. You remove a block of subject to change money from the legislative crosshairs and put it into a structure whose core benefits will be tax-free qualified withdrawals. So let's not even give them that bone to chew on. Raising as much cash as possible to pay for these Roth conversions is non-negotiable. Why? When you convert, say, $100,000 from your IRA to Roth, you owe taxes on that amount. And that could be $20,000 to $30,000 depending on your tax bracket. You don't want to pay that from the IRA itself, though, and that will be a big temptation for a lot of you. Try to avoid that. That just triggers more taxes. Let's get real about the 10-ton elephant in the cockpit here, and that's cash. Cash, yeah. Raise as much cash as possible to pay for these Roth conversions. And in my mind, it's pretty much non-negotiable if you're going to do it. Why? Well, when you convert, and let's say $100,000 from your IRA to Roth, you owe taxes on that amount. And that could even be anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000. It varies, obviously, and it depends on your tax bracket. You don't want to pay that from your IRA, though. I can't overemphasize that. That just triggers more taxes, and it's almost an impossible descent in your flight path that it's going to be very difficult for you to recover from. So you do need liquid cash in hand. And I'll tell you another thing that it helps, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts, is the sequence of return risk. 2008, we saw a 51% peak to trough drop in the stock market. That means if you had $1 million, it became worth about $500,000 6 months, 3 months later. So if you're selling your equity at the 500 range to the $1 million instead of the $1 million range, man, that could be tough to recover from. That's why you pretty much need to have cash to weather these sequence of return, which are tilted a little more towards the earlier years of your requirement, a little bit less as you get older. The real message is for you pre-retirees. Cash is king. Please don't forget that. Right now, while the money train is still rolling, your high salary bonuses, maybe stock options, focus on building a new war or a large war chest, okay? Max out your savings. Try to live a little bit below your means, if you can do that, and stockpile cash in high yield corporates or short-term bonds. I personally, I'm looking over at my investment board, and I keep quite a bit of cash in a Vanguard fund called Victor Mike Foxtrot X-Ray, or VMFXX. And they're currently paying around 4.2%. That varies, obviously. So guys, please do your best to hold off on the tennis and the golf and the pickleball and the long trips. If you can keep yourself in shape, there'll be plenty of time for you to do pickleball when you're 65 years old, even though orthopedic surgeons do love you guys out there playing pickleball at 66. Once the money train door closes at retirement, it slams shut and it's loud. I can remember when a month after I retired, I went on our payroll platform. It's called JetNet, and I went on there and it showed 0, and I literally clutched my heart and I told my wife, retirement's real. It is now officially real. So when you see 0 paycheck coming in, that's when it really hits you. This is all about opportunity cost. If you don't sock away enough cash now, you'll miss out on converting more during the Goldilocks zone. All right? It's just that simple. Imagine leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax savings on the table because you couldn't convert the upfront tax bill. Ouch, that really hurts. Think about multi-year strategy, please. Convert 50, 100, 150, 250, whatever you can afford, just as long as you stay within the 24% tax bucket. I'll probably do a show on why I picked the 24% tax bucket. It does keep you out of some of the higher tier Medicaid increases and reductions in Social Security. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons, but the 24% bucket does seem to work pretty well. A lot of you are probably saying to yourself, well, how do I do all these back testing, and how do I do a Monte Carlo test? Well, I'd like to tell you that I had a super IQ, but the reality of it is I use and I cross-check frequently 6 different AI platforms. And what I'll do is I'll ask the same question with all 6, and I'll look to see how consistent the answers are. And I'll tell you the 6 that I like to do. I actually pay for Grok. The other ones are unpaid: ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Copilot, and Gemini. And it's amazing how similar, even though they draw from different databases, how similar the results can be. And when I find an outlier, I'll do additional check on there to make sure that the data I'm coming up with is accurate. When I ran a test on theoretical outcomes and break-even analysis, the results were quite demonstrative in support of Roth conversions. And let's take a look at how I got there. And I'm going to include a couple of graphs here that we can talk about. Some of the precursors were, I live in a no-tax state. I live in Texas. Thank you very much. Wife is 12 years younger than me, but I ran another analysis where your wife is your same age. The simulation ran from age 73 to 83, that 10-year period, and standard IRS RMD tables are in effect, starting at around a little less than 4% and going off the chart, as you can see, as you get older. I start with a $4 million IRA money conversion, and I convert about half of it. And what I was looking for was the break-even point where I really am in the money and any reasons I should or should not convert. And here's what I came up with. The converted portfolio grows larger due to tax-free Roth compounding on the converted amount. Tax savings start immediately and compound. By age 82, the strategy turns net positive after recovering the roughly $275,000 in conversion tax. You're going to be paying that. You're going to be paying that back anyhow, just later on in life. By age 83, the net benefit shot over $58,000. So if you look in the graphic that I've put up here, what you're going to see is what I call the 24% bucket simulation. The way I got to 24%, it was just trying to keep me out of other bumpers that I would run into. I've kind of talked about them in the past. It may be 22% may work better for you, particularly guys that don't have to retire until they're 75 or RMD until they're 75. That may work out a little bit better for them. No conversion, and when you look at the chart, it's going to be no conversion versus the fill 24% path. And I mean, the numbers just jump right out to using 6% annual return, which is quite conservative, IRS uniform lifetime factors for ages 73 to 88, and 6 years of filling the 24% bucket with Roth conversions. The approximate age 88 picture looks like this. What I'm saying is, what will this look like by the time I'm 88 years old? Metric at your age of 88, no conversion, all IRA, or the bucket filled at 24% over 6 years. The numbers are striking. What are we looking here? Remaining traditional IRA balance in your straight IRAs, 5.7 million. The bucket, 24% bucket, is 3.3 million. We make up for that very quickly. Total RMDs taken from 73 to 88 for the IRA bucket is 5.2 million. Guess what we guys get? $3 million, $2.99 million if you're in the 24% bucket fill. Roth IRA balance, well, of course, it's going to be zero for the all IRA. Your bucket for the 24% bucket is going to be 5.8 million. Finally, annual Roth conversions from age 68 to 73, all IRA, zero. They fill the 24% bucket, $346,000 per year. Just a couple little recap points here. The Goldilocks zone, it's a real thing. Post-retirement, pre-RMD, age 73 for the most of us, 75 for the other guys that are born 60 plus. Convert IRA, 401k into like a 22 or 24% bucket and keep those within the low tax rates. Leverage the one big beautiful bill for permanent lower brackets. Expand your SALT if you're in a high tax state, an extra senior deduction of $6,000. Raise cash now while you still can for your pre-retirees. Prioritize savings. Retirees, get creative without dipping into retirement funds. As always, consult a tax pro or an accountant or somebody that really specializes and understands the tax code quite well, especially if you're a pilot with an airline and you have pensions or unique benefits. These new phase outs can complicate things immensely. You know, I put a lot of time in putting these together, a lot of research. I know a lot of people ask for the like and the click and the comment and the share and all that good stuff. I think you'll do that organically if you feel like there's something here for you. If there's not, I get it. I respect that. And what it'll cause me to do is go back and drill down even harder to get you information that you really care for. So what's your biggest Roth question? I don't know, drop it in the comment section below. If you have any ideas on how to do this Roth conversion better, that's fine. I know that there are, they're called charitable contributions, qualified QCDs, qualified charitable contributions that you can make. And look, that's a possibility, but I don't see how it really changes the curve above in the very least. I can talk about that later on if you want to hear about it. If you're new to the Guy Midkiff Show, I appreciate you quite a bit. I know that there's a lot of competition out there, a lot of guys that are fishing to get you on board as a client. I'm not doing that. I just want to help you guys out. Now, let's follow my motto and let's get busy living and health as well. Thank you very much for listening to the Guy Midkiff Show.